I stood in the defendant's section, radiating controlled fury, while humans debated my fate in languages that tasted like ash. 3 days of testimony. 3 days of the prosecution painting me as a terrorist, while my defense argued justified resistance. 3 days of human representatives demanding I be made an example of while Solvathi diplomats maintained careful diplomatic neutrality. I didn't deny destroying the mining facility on Tharsis IV. The installation was illegally extracting resources from territory my people had claimed for 3 generations. Human corporations ignored treaties, environmental regulations, and Solvathi sovereignty. So I acted. Planted charges with surgical precision, equipment destroyed, 0 casualties. Then I turned myself in to force the legal confrontation my government was too politically timid to pursue. The intersystem tribunal chamber hummed with translation technology and barely suppressed hostility. I watched the judges, 3 humans, 2 Vedrani, 1 Krathari, pretend they hadn't already decided my sentence before proceedings began. Watched the gallery filled with human observers who saw me as a criminal rather than someone defending her people's rights. My attention kept drifting to one particular figure, a human guard stationed near the chamber's entrance. His name tag read Rivera. Unlike the other security personnel who watched me with obvious hostility or nervous caution, he displayed neither, just professional vigilance, eyes occasionally meeting mine without the hatred I'd grown accustomed to from his species. It was unsettling. I wanted him to react, to show the prejudice I knew existed beneath human civility, to confirm my assumptions about his people, but he remained frustratingly, maddeningly impassive. The lead judge cleared his throat. The tribunal finds the defendant guilty of destruction of property and illegal sabotage, with mitigating circumstances acknowledged regarding disputed territorial claims and demonstrated care to prevent casualties. Here it came, 5 years maximum. The prosecution had argued eloquently for harsh sentencing as deterrent against future acts of alien terrorism. Sentence: 18 months at Harmony Reach Minimum Security Detention Facility, with provision for appeal after 6 months if behavioral standards are met. Not the vindication I'd wanted, but not the crushing punishment they'd sought either. I accepted the verdict without visible reaction. The point had been made. My case was recorded, debated publicly, broadcast across multiple systems. Humans couldn't ignore Solvathi territorial grievances anymore. As guards moved to escort me out, I passed Rivera. Our eyes met briefly. I expected something: satisfaction at seeing me sentenced, contempt for my actions, even curiosity about the alien criminal. But his expression remained neutral, almost thoughtful. It bothered me more than outright hostility would have. Harmony Reach Detention Facility was neither harmonious nor within reach of anything meaningful, but I'd endured worse. 3 weeks into my sentence, I'd established a routine: exercise, educational programming, minimal interaction with other inmates. The administration kept me somewhat isolated, probably afraid I'd radicalize the general population or become a rallying point for anti-human sentiment. The guards rotated regularly, professional, distant. I preferred it that way. Then during outdoor exercise period on a Tuesday that felt like every other Tuesday, I saw him, Rivera, the guard from my trial, now supervising the exercise yard with the same neutral vigilance I remembered. My first reaction was anger. Of course, they assigned someone from my trial to monitor me. Psychological manipulation, probably hoping I'd complain and give them excuse to extend my sentence. But Rivera didn't approach, didn't single me out, treated me exactly like every other inmate under his supervision, which is to say, with professional disinterest bordering on indifference. Days passed. I watched him despite myself. Watched him break up disputes without excessive force. Watched him respond to questions with brief, clear answers. Watched him maintain boundaries without the casual cruelty I'd witnessed from some guards. One afternoon, a Krathari inmate with known anti-human views deliberately provoked him, made crude comments about human weakness, colonial crimes, genetic inferiority. I watched, waiting for Rivera to react with anger or disciplinary action. Instead, he simply noted the behavior, gave one calm warning about harassment policies, and moved on. The de-escalation was so practiced it was almost boring. Later that day, exercise equipment malfunctioned, trapping an inmate's arm in mechanical grip. Guards responded slowly, protocol safety checks, covering liability before addressing actual emergency. Rivera was the one who moved immediately, manually overriding the safety mechanism to free the trapped limb before serious injury occurred. Then he filed a maintenance complaint, his voice carrying genuine frustration at equipment neglect that could have caused permanent harm. I realized something uncomfortable. This human cared more about inmate safety than most of the facility's administration. It contradicted the convenient narrative I'd constructed. Humans were callous colonizers, their systems designed to oppress, their guards instruments of species-based authority. But Rivera's actions suggested something more complicated, more individual, more frustratingly resistant to my generalizations. I didn't like it. Preferred my enemies simple and hate-worthy. This silent human guard who refused to fit my categories was becoming a problem. 4 months into my sentence, I broke my own rule and initiated conversation. It happened in the library during my scheduled research time. I was examining legal precedents for territorial disputes, already planning arguments for when I was released. Rivera was supervising, positioned near the entrance with his usual watchful calm. "Why don't you hate me?" The question came out more confrontational than I'd intended. He turned his attention to me, expression unchanged. "Ma'am, I'm on duty. Personal feelings aren't relevant to my responsibilities here." That's not an answer. It's the only answer appropriate to our respective positions. His formality was infuriating and somehow respectful simultaneously. I pushed further. "You were at my trial. You heard what I did. I destroyed human property, threatened economic interests in disputed territory. Your people wanted me imprisoned for years. Don't tell me you feel nothing about that." Rivera was quiet for a long moment. I thought he'd simply refuse to engage. Then he said carefully, "The facility I worked at before this posting was destroyed in a mining accident. Corporate negligence, inadequate safety protocols, ignored maintenance reports, profit prioritized over worker protection. 14 people died, humans mostly, also 3 Vedrani and 1 Solvathi." He met my eyes directly. "The company paid fines. No one went to prison. So when you ask if I feel anything about your case, the answer is complicated. I wasn't expecting that. You're comparing corporate negligence to deliberate sabotage. I'm noting that you made sure no one died. You turned yourself in to force accountability. The company that killed my coworkers did neither." He paused. "I don't condone destruction of property. I also don't confuse property with people. You're here because you broke laws that exist for reasons, but so do the territorial disputes you were protesting. Both things can be true." It was the most I'd heard him speak. Every word challenged my comfortable assumptions. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you asked." Simple, direct, honest. The conversation ended there. Other inmates needed attention. But something had shifted. Rivera was no longer a faceless representative of human authority. He'd become individual, complicated, refusing to fit the categories I'd assigned. I returned to my research, but concentration was impossible. The silent guard had finally spoken, and his words lingered far longer than I wanted them to. Release day arrived exactly on schedule. I'd served my full sentence without incident, earning no reductions because I refused to express regret for actions I still believed were justified. I expected to walk out, return to Solvathi space, and resume my advocacy work with renewed focus and useful martyr credentials. What I didn't expect was finding Rivera waiting outside the facility, off duty, civilian clothes, looking almost nervous. "I don't work here anymore," he said before I could ask. "Transferred to administrative position in conflict resolution. Desk work mostly." He paused. "Thought I should tell you that your case influenced that decision." How? Made me think about what I was enforcing versus what I believed in. Working as a guard meant maintaining systems I'm not sure I agreed with. Decided I'd rather work on changing those systems instead. He handed me a data chip, legal resources, organizations working on territorial rights, corporate accountability, intersystem reform. Figured you'd want to continue your work, maybe through channels that don't involve explosives this time. I took the chip, studying him. "You're helping me. Why?" "Because you cared enough about your people's rights to sacrifice your freedom. That's rare. Misguided in methodology maybe, but the motivation was sound." He met my eyes. "Also because I've spent months watching you. I think you're capable of causing either significant harm or significant positive change. I'd prefer the latter." "You don't know me." "I know you visited the library 3 times weekly researching legal precedent. I know you helped other inmates understand appeal rights. I know you turned down early release because accepting required admitting wrongdoing you don't feel." He shrugged. "That tells me something about character." It was the longest conversation we'd had. I realized with surprise that I didn't want it to end. "I'm still angry," I said, "at human expansion, corporate exploitation, systems that protect property over people." "Good. Anger focused productively drives change." He hesitated. "Just consider that your enemies aren't humans as a species, but specific systems and policies. Some of us are trying to change those systems too. We could use allies who understand what's at stake." He offered his hand, that human gesture of trust and partnership. I looked at it, at him, at the future that had suddenly become more complicated than simple opposition. I accepted the handshake.